Yeah. It was 4,800 like a minute ago.
4,800. Really?
Okay. 47, 44.
Loretta says she questioned your.
Who?
Loretta.
Loretta. 849 likes. No.
Can you cut it down?
It doesn't show.
At least it's one down.
See the cops looking out the window? Them cops looking out the window. The third floor window middle.
Probably make sure there's no drones. There's gonna be a lot of bugs out there.
Okay. Okay. See, that makes sense. See, I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, they all know each other.
Yeah. They're still there.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect. They invite you to
what.
I don't.
Yeah, we're live. We're live on our channel. Read out. Put your arm out. Down there. Read out. Got a great big band.
at the courthouse today. Like, I get it, you don't want cameras, but like no one on the lawn, wait till we tell you to line up. There's like, it just looks like it's a bit too much in a public trial in a public courthouse.
Yeah, we've seen this play out, both you and I. Different, depends on where you are. I think the smaller town, the more ripe you are for this sort of I guess Delphi gets a little bit of a pass if they're overreacting on the courthouse. I don't know.
I get that, except I look at the way this whole thing has transpired, right? And
yes,
this is obviously the highest profile case, but there's a madman loose in this small town, right? Takes two innocent young girls. Everyone's got to be terrified. 2 days after, the person they say, no doubt, is the killer, tells investigators he's there. Tells them he's there. There's a report written on this, and they don't even talk to him, interview him, or do any follow-up for 5 years until a clerk is scanning some of the papers and takes a look at it and says, oh, maybe I should show this to the detectives. A middle-aged man who said he was there that day. Like, how long was the list? The list had to be tiny, and he put himself on the list, but they completely ignored it.
So you have to believe that they've had some soul searching, and that this was a bungled investigation, and they know it. And now they're having to, first of all, they had to get him to confess to get to this point in this trial where now we think he's guilty. You take the confessions out of this?
No, I think there's still enough without the confessions.
The bullet?
No, but he puts himself there. This is what I'll do. Gray Hughes, explain to Ted from your perspective, your theory on how you could convict Richard Allen without the confessions, but with his statements saying and putting himself at the scene.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, whenever I tell this story on my show using the map, I always forget about the bullet. And I don't even mention the confessions at all. Because the thing is Richard Allen said he got there from 1:30 to 3:30. He lied when he said it was 12 to 1:30 because those same three girls were on the trails during that time and they didn't see him. They only saw him when they were leaving, and they have a photograph at 1:26 as they're leaving. Richard Allen's vehicle drives by the Hoosier Harvest Store or a vehicle that matches his, parks the car, and then he says he got to the trail at 1:30. He passes the three girls, they see him, and he sees them. So that right there, he's locked in as that guy. And that guy, they all said, looked like the same person in Libby's video. Then it takes 11 minutes to walk to the bridge. And that would put him at the bridge at about 1:45-ish, because he passed the girls at like 1:34. So he'd be at 1:45, and then Betsy Blair drives her vehicle and parks at the parking spot and goes onto the trail immediately. And Richard Allen would have had no time to have ran past Betsy Blair because she went right to the bridge. And guess what? She sees Richard Allen, or bridge guy, whatever you want to call him, standing on platform 1, exactly where Richard Allen said he was standing, wearing exactly the same clothing that the bridge guy was wearing. He said he was wearing blue jeans, a blue or black Carhartt jacket with a hoodie and some sort of head covering, maybe like a skull cap, okay? And then Betsy Blair turns around after seeing Richard Allen standing there, walks back down the trail and passes Abby and Libby, and Abby and Libby, therefore, are going to run into Richard Allen right there. Then you see the video at the end of the bridge where it shows a person wearing exactly the same clothing that Richard Allen said he was wearing. There is no reasonable explanation at all that there was another person on a Monday afternoon at 1:30, a day that he happened to have off, and nobody else, like that's a work day. And there's this guy wearing exactly the same clothing that he said he was wearing. And when he was shown a picture, by the way, of Bridge Guy, they asked him, "Is this you?" And he goes, "Well, it's not me. If the girl took that picture, it's not me," which really means that looks exactly like me. And if a different camera took that picture, I would say, yes, that's me. I mean, this is like, to me, this is the most simple. And right at that point, it's already, Richard Allen is the guy that said down the hill and took them down the hill. And that makes him at least responsible for kidnapping and taking them to the crime scene. And then, oh, by the way, the bullet that he said he ejected in one of his confessions at the end of the bridge, they find sitting at the crime scene, and it linked to his gun with ejection marks. All right. And he's confessed. I mean, like, it's just, he confessed in a rational way.
Well, let's do this. Let's do this. I want to leave the confessions off the table. So let's go around the horn. Philip Dubé, could this case be made without the confessions?
Never. In fact, I'm not even sure that a grand jury would have indicted. It's only enough to prove presence. That's it. It does not prove commission of the homicides. If they would have had, for example, some forensics of the girl's blood on his Carhartt jacket or his skull cap, or they found his DNA under one of the girl's fingernails, or found a hair follicle of his on one of the girls, then he's finished, obviously, because it was direct contact. But the mere presence of a dry, spent shell casing is not enough to even file, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. And if I were a surrogate deputized DA for the day, I would reject the case and I would tell detectives to go out,
Philip,
the bushes and get me more evidence.
That's never happening. You will never be a prosecutor. Marie Pereira, could this case be made without the confessions?
No, I agree with Philip 100%. It couldn't be made. And I disagree with Gray that the confession is cut and dry. He confessed to a lot of things. And let's talk about the feces. Come on. This is a person who confessed. He said he molested them. There was sexual assault. There was not. He said he's assaulted his daughter. That didn't happen. The man was not well. So this is a case that relies heavily on a confession that is suspect, because the confession is basically full of feces. It doesn't matter about the confession right now. And this is what the case is grounded in. The testimony of those eyewitnesses 5 years later, there's room for reasonable doubt there too. The length of time it took them to investigate really denigrates that eyewitness testimony from the people who said, just you, Gray, saying the timing and everything, how it happened was confusing to me. So to the jurors, I'm sure.
Well, this is what we're going to do. I understand it's a little confusing. I'm going to put together, we have a little map that we'll show you after the break, Marie, and we'll kind of flush it out a little bit. Ted Rowlands, your thoughts. Could this case be made now, do you think, without the confessions? If the jury takes the confession and says, listen, I'm not comfortable with them, they're all after he's arrested for the murders. Yeah. Are you comfortable?
No, I don't think they come back with a guilty verdict with just his presence being there.
And the shell casing.
The bullet.
Yeah, the whole thing, the shell casing, the bullet, all together with the marks.
It's a much different case. Absolutely. If you're actually saying, Gray, that this is just a strong case without the confessions, well, then why did they ship him to Guantanamo Bay and turn him in and make him confess, basically, is what happened. Why would he go and be put in solitary confinement in a prison unless they were after exactly what they got, and that is a confession, turns out multiple.
All right, I can't leave it hanging there. Gray, you want to respond?
Yeah. So I guess psychosis makes somebody psychic. You know, I didn't realize that when you have psychosis that you can actually see into the mind of the actual killer and see this white van driving on a private drive that nobody on the planet knew about other than Richard Allen and perhaps the guy driving the van, okay? So I didn't know that existed. And by the way, I believe Richard Allen was completely, he was eating, he was exercising, etc. Then he confessed to his wife, and he begged them to believe him. And then the attorneys got involved. And don't you think it's interesting that some of the, quote, false confessions involve family members that they knew would come back and say, no, he didn't do that. Plus, they're biased towards him. So obviously, if his attorneys got involved for future confessions, you want to muck up the original ones that were completely said under no duress whatsoever. He said them, and then later on, these false confessions come out, and he started getting really crazy. I mean, literally almost the next day after he confessed, they're like, whoa, man. And he started drooling on his shirt. All these things were going on. It was just, it seemed to me completely fabricated.
All right. Our guests are staying with us. Ted is staying with me. He's not allowed to leave. You're in lockdown, Ted Rollins. We'll be with you, folks, until the verdict is rendered and delivered publicly. You're watching special breaking coverage of the Delphi murders trial verdict.
Everybody says I went to the wrong crowd, but I think I was the wrong crowd. Nobody in this world loves you like your parents.
And he said to me, when if you close, I'll kill my parents and have a party.
I couldn't get out of my head. I couldn't stop.
Which do you think you are? Sick and treatable or irredeemably mad?
Interview with a Killer. Season finale, Sunday, 8/7 Central. And don't miss the new season coming in 2025, only on Court TV.
Guys down the hill. That was the video for years. That was the big clue. The alleged Delphi killer. Prosecutors arrested a man named Richard Allen. They say he's the bridge guy. He's the killer. And now the jury has reached a verdict. Welcome back to our rolling, breaking coverage of the Delphi murders trial. You're looking at the live scene in Delphi right now. Folks lined up on the sidewalk. I don't think they're permitted to come onto the courthouse property. I don't know why. I thought it was a public courthouse, but that's another story for another time. Barbara McDonald from Court TV is inside the courtroom right now. She will be there, and once that verdict is reached, once everyone assembles, Abby and Libby's families, they bring the accused, Richard Allen, in, the attorneys, the judge, and then the jury. They deliver the verdict, and then whatever happens afterwards, as they sort of close out the day's business in the courtroom, then everyone inside has been instructed to orderly walk out of the courthouse, not run like a bunch of lunatics like they did in the Martha Stewart case years ago, when we had a similar scene where there were no cameras permitted in the courtroom and everyone in the nation wanted to know the verdict. This is going to be a little bit more orderly. There's less people in the courtroom, but Barbara McDonald from Court TV is one of them. She will come up and she will deliver to us what the verdict is. He's facing 4 counts of murder for the murders of Abby Williams and Liberty German, 2 counts on each of the young girls. It's been a long road, folks. It's been a super, super long road to get to this point where the jury will speak. If you're the victim's family, you're looking for justice. You want to turn the page. You will never forget your little girl. You will never forget your little girl's best friend. The community will never forget them. But they want justice. They want some sense of someone has been held responsible, the person who slashed their throats and took their lives. Families believe Richard Allen is the man. On the other side, Richard Allen has claimed his innocence. They've pointed the finger at specific people who they were not permitted to point at during the course of the trial. That's another story for another day. But as we wait for this moment to arrive, the big question is, will this jury come back and say guilty and deliver for the families of Abby and Libby the sense of justice they have waited way too long for? Now, as we wait for this verdict, I am not. I will introduce who is with us. Ted Rollins is of course, seated next to me here at Court TV. Court TV anchor Ted Rollins. We also, Barbara McDonald is heading out of the courthouse, so we are going nowhere. We will wait for her to come and deliver this verdict. You can see people moving quickly out of the courthouse. Ted, this is the moment. I mean, we'll know in literally seconds, I believe. I'm looking at her camera getting set in place. Again, 4 counts. The verdict has been reached. The verdict has been delivered. And now the only thing left is, what is that verdict? So we saw Barbara walking out of the courthouse, and our camera is scanning to try to find her. Now, I know she's a pool reporter, so she has obligations to deliver that verdict publicly to other members of the media, and I'm not sure if she...
That's a good point.
That's probably where she had to go. When you're a pool reporter, you have obligations.
You have to go to the bank of microphones because you're literally providing the information for all of the networks now. It's a little frustrating that...
a little frustrating. We've got our microphone ready to go, too.
Yeah.
There it is.
But one would assume that we're going to find out very soon. This is a unique way for us to get this information. Let's see if we can...
There's Bob Mata. I see Bob Mata.
Yeah. What if we can open up...
Yeah, why don't somebody grab Bob Mata and get him over here? Bob, can you hear me? He can't hear me. And you're seeing everyone's being very orderly, very under control. So you're not reading anyone. I mean, they were told to act in a very orderly fashion. If you're just joining us, The verdict has been reached. The verdict has been delivered. We are just waiting to deliver it to you, ladies and gentlemen. And maybe we could tell our camera guy just to grab Bob Motta, right? No, he's gone. All right, we'll wait for Barbara to come over. Barbara McDonald was, again, what's termed a pool reporter, meaning she has responsibilities to the entire media to deliver that verdict, and then she will walk promptly over to us.
Okay, there's Alex Perez with ABC.
And I'm trying to see if any family members had come out of that front door, and I did not see any. Did you, Ted? I mean, it happened very quickly.
I did not. If our camera guy can hear us, the guy right in front of him right now is Alex Perez with ABC. He was just told what the verdict was. I saw him typing it away.
If you're just joining us, ladies and gentlemen, we are seconds away from finding out the verdict in the Delphi murders case, waiting for our producer, Barbara McDonald, who may be answering some questions right now. Here she is. She's here. You'll watch TV. This is live television. You got to zoom in. We focus. We'll get her microphone on, and she will deliver this verdict at this moment. She's got to put in her earpiece. She likely does not even realize that she is on the air right now. She's dialing in. I'm giving you behind the scenes stuff, folks. She's dialing in so she can hear me as we get ready for this verdict to be delivered. The question is, did this jury find Richard Allen responsible for the absolutely brutal murders of these two young girls, best friends who were there for one another at the moment some monster decided to take their lives? Unconscionable. Unconscionable. All right, I think we're just about ready. I can see Barbara putting on the microphone. And there you see Richard Allen. Those are not live pictures, I don't believe, or are they? Are those live pictures? Those are not live pictures we're looking at. So let's keep it live so we can see what's happening. So the folks at home, we can take them behind the curtain. We can take them behind the curtain today. And there's Barbara McDonald. I don't know if Barbara, can you hear me? She's not hearing me yet. Barbara, can you hear me? Okay. She can't hear. Okay. If we can maybe just tell the cameraman to turn on the microphone and just let her speak. Even if she can't hear me, I don't know if she's having a problem. Look it up. Here we go. All right, folks, get ready. We're about to deliver you the verdict in the Delphi murders case. Barbara McDonald, Court TV senior producer, on the ground, was inside for everything. Barbara, we've been waiting for this moment. Please deliver the verdict.
Guilty on all 4 counts, unanimous by this jury. The defense did ask to have the jury polled. They all affirmed that that was, in fact, their verdict. Guilty of 4 counts of murder, 2 counts of felony murder against Abigail Williams and Liberty German, 2 counts of intentional murder against Abby and Libby. Sentencing will happen on the 20th of December. The judge is setting aside all day. I can tell you when we got into the courtroom about 10 minutes till 2, it was somber. Very quiet. Nobody was talking. The room was filled with members of law enforcement, Indiana State Police, the Carroll County Sheriff's Department. Abby and Libby's families were already inside the courtroom when the media was allowed in, and the Allen family was not present. The media members came in, took their seats. There were 14 seats available to the members of the general public. They were then brought in. Bradley Rosie and Jennifer Auger from the defense team
were not in the courtroom. Richard Allen was. He was standing at the beginning talking with his defense attorney, Andrew Baldwin. The judge came in just after 2 o'clock and asked where Mr. Baldwin, or rather where Mr. Rosie and Jennifer Auger were. And the judge entered at 2:11, according to my notes. And Andrew Baldwin told the judge that they were waiting for Kathy Allen and members of Richard Allen's family to arrive. The judge said, so despite my directive to be less than 10 minutes away, she said the jury has reached a verdict. When can we expect them? Andrew Baldwin replied they were on their way up. They entered the room at about 2:14. At 2:15, the jury, or rather 2:19, the jury entered. You could not tell from the looks on their faces. They did not make eye contact with Richard Allen or either family members of the victims, Abby and Libby, or Richard Allen's family. They came in, they sat down, they looked weary. And again, the room was absolutely quiet. The judge had admonished the crowd not to have any outbursts, that regardless of what the verdict was going to be, there were going to be people who were going to be unhappy with it. She said, you can take your unhappiness outside of the courthouse. Again, this jury finding Richard Allen guilty on all 4 counts of murder that he was facing after about 18 hours of deliberations over 4 days, Vinny.
So at the moment he's found guilty, everyone admonished not to say anything, not to react. What did you notice anything in the courtroom? Anything from a family member to Richard Allen?
Yeah, so his wife and mother, his wife Kathy and his mother Janice began sobbing. The people who were sitting around them hugged them, held them. They were audibly sobbing through most of the proceeding once that verdict was announced. There were members of Abby and Libby's family that were crying. There were others that just remained rather stone-faced as the verdict was read, and that immediate reaction. Once the sentencing date was set, the judge did say that we were free to leave. The law enforcement in the room allowed Richard Allen's family to leave first. After Richard Allen was outside of the court, he was immediately taken into custody. Obviously, he's been in custody, but that will change soon for him. Then the Allen family was allowed to leave, as were members of Abby and Libby's families. Some of their family members stayed to give hugs to members of the prosecution team, to Superintendent Doug Carter of the Indiana State Police and Lieutenant Jerry Holman of the Indiana State Police, as well as the prosecutor, Nicholas McClelland, Stacy Diener, James Luttrell. A bit of a celebration in court, although they weren't being very loud with that celebration. I was on the opposite side of the room, but there were a lot of hugs going around, a lot of pats on the back. The prosecution, though, remained somber looking throughout this entire proceeding today. And again, you know, it was just very, very quiet in the courtroom. It was really the first time that I've been in the courtroom with all of these people, and you could hear a pin drop. A lot of reaction outside. I came out of the courthouse. I was one of the pool reporters today, so I did have my sign for the members of the media who were not in. And as people began to see this and realize what the verdict was, there was a lot of cheering, a lot of screaming for Abby and Libby, a lot of clapping. A lot of people are very happy with this verdict. Of course, not everyone is. Richard Allen's family appearing to be quite surprised by this verdict. The judge did also mention that the county, Carroll County, is not able to do that pre-sentencing report for Richard Allen. She had already talked to people from her county who are willing to do that. The defense did waive the 30-day sentencing, which is typical here in Indiana for sentencing to happen in December. Again, it'll be December 20th. They think they only need 1 day for that. And the judge has set aside the entire day. That is a Friday, December 20th. We'll be back here in Indiana to find out just how many years he's facing. Right now, he could be sentenced to 130 years or more. Vinny?
Barbara, Ted Rowland's with us for our verdict coverage here.
Barbara, did Richard look into the gallery at all to acknowledge his family either before or after the verdict?
I couldn't see him once the verdict was announced and the judge instructed the members of law enforcement that they could take him out of the room. Everyone stood up. We were still seated, so I was not able to get my eyes on him. Prior to the verdict being read, he had been standing talking with his defense attorney, Andrew Baldwin, and seemed basically the same as he has for every day of this trial. He was rather calm. He had his hands behind his back. He seemed to be chatting with his attorney. His attorneys, though, I think looked far more somber than he did. Once the verdict was read, Jennifer Auger did go back and sit with the Allen family while they were waiting to exit the courtroom. She was holding Kathy Allen, and Kathy Allen was sobbing into her arms. Richard Allen's mother, Janice Allen, also sobbing. She was with her husband. He had his arm wrapped around her. So a lot of visible emotion from them, not a lot of visible emotion from the families of Abby and Libby, other than perhaps a little bit of relief.
Barbara, do we expect anyone to speak afterwards, whether it's the families of the victims, the prosecution team, the defense?
We don't know at the moment. We also don't know whether the gag order is still in effect or how that process is going to play out. I know that there have been quite a few areas set up as potential areas where people could come out and talk if they choose to. One of the areas is to the right of me. I don't see a lot of activity happening there at the moment. And, we just don't know how many of these families are going to want to talk or perhaps take this moment to absorb what just happened before they decide to issue a statement. Kathy Allen's attorney did notify me earlier that after a verdict, she would likely be issuing a written statement. So we will wait for that. The prosecution in this case has not been very keen on doing media interviews. It's unclear if this verdict is going to change that for them or if they're going to keep things rather quiet as they have throughout this process. Superintendent Doug Carter, as I mentioned, is here. He's not in uniform. He was in a suit. He had his wife with him in the courtroom. We don't know if any of them are going to want to come out and have anything to say at this point. 18 hours of deliberations. We really didn't know which way this was going to go, but this jury found Richard Allen guilty of all 4 charges.
Barbara McDonald in Delphi, guilty across the board. Richard Allen has been convicted. 4 counts of murder. Our verdict coverage continues right here on your front row seat to justice.
Everybody says I went to the wrong crowd, but I think I went to the wrong crowd.
Nobody in this world loves you like your parents.
And he said to me, when if you close, I came over tonight at bar.
I couldn't get out of my head. I couldn't stop.
Which do you think you are? Sick and treatable or irredeemably mad?
Interview with a Killer. Season finale, Sunday, 8/7 Central. And don't miss the new season coming in 2025, only on Court TV.